Beginning to read from 1 Samuel, chapter 25, verses 2 through 31. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. The man was very rich, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. And the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. When David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing sheep, David sent 10 young men. And David said to the young man, "Go up to Carmel, to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus you shall say unto him who lives in prosperity, Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace to all that you have. Now I have heard that you have shearers. Your shepherds were with us, and we did not hurt them, nor was there anything missing from them while they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand, and to your servants, and to your son David." So when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David, and then waited. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, "Who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away, each one from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men whom I do not know where they are from?" So David's young men turned on their heels and went back, and they came and they told him all these words. And David said to his men, "Every man gird on his sword." And so every man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went with David, and 200 stayed with the supplies. Now one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he reviled them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them when we were in the fields. And they were a wall to us, both by night and day, all the time we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what you will do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a scoundrel that no one can speak unto him." And Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread and 2 skins of wine and 5 sheep already dressed, 5 seahs of roasted grain and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, "Go on before me, I'm coming after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. And it was so that as she rode on the donkey that she went down under the cover of the hill. And there were David and his men were coming down toward her, and she met them. And David said, "Surely in vain I've protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him. And he has repaid me evil for good. May God so do, and more also, to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light." Now when Abigail saw David, she hastened to dismount her donkey, and she fell on her face before David and bowed to the ground. So she fell at his feet and said, "On me, my lord, on me let this iniquity be. And please let your maidservant speak in your ears, and hear the words of your maidservant. Please let not my lord regard this scoundrel Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent. And now, therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now let your enemies and those who seek harm for my Lord be as Nabal. And now this present which your maidservant has brought to my Lord, let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself. When the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. Now, I've read quite at length this morning because I thought that we needed to hear the whole story about Nabal and Abigail. And it's interesting that it comes on Mother's Day, and I'd like to wish all the mothers out there that are listening today a happy Mother's Day. I hope today is a great day for you. I hope you hear from your children, and I hope that you are blessed. And we're looking at this couple, Nabal and Abigail. Nabal was a rich man. The Bible says he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. You see, with all of this livestock, it was a business that he ran. He was like a modern day rancher, if you will. And he had employees and servants. You know, and he was very successful. But sometimes being really successful and being a self-made man does something to you. You begin to think that you've got it all together. Maybe you're a little bit smarter than the average Joe. And because of your business success, you think that it validates everything that you do. Or at least Nabal did. The Bible in the Old English, in the King James Version, said he was churlish. And that word means mean-spirited, rude, stubborn, and vulgar. I wonder what it was like to work for old Nabal. Did you ever work with somebody and it's my way or the highway? And then they treat you like you are some kind of slave. And you got to do it because it may be the only job you have. It may be the only paycheck you've got to put food on the table. So you got to put up with somebody that's just a terrible individual. And not to make excuses for Nabal, but his parents did name him Nabal, which means a stupid person, a dolt. You know, don't ever call your children stupid. Don't ever make them feel like they're stupid, because it just does something to their psyche and causes them to not want to try to do better and try to excel. And they begin to accept the fact that they're stupid. It's just like calling somebody ugly. You call somebody ugly long enough, and they begin to feel like they are ugly. Don't raise your children like that. But I'm not going to let Nabal totally off the hook. Nabal was a crude and rude and socially unacceptable person. And it makes you wonder how people with such qualities rise to the positions that they do. It makes you shake your head sometimes. How do they get to this place? Who saw something valuable in the way that this man conducts his life? I worked for a man one time. Now, he wasn't mean-spirited like Nabal, but he just had no clue as to what to say and what not to say and how to treat people sometimes. I mean, he's the kind of guy that would alienate people and then walk around and wonder why. He would offend the whole room and just not have a clue. Why? Because he just didn't put himself in someone else's place to have to hear what he was saying. And some people never get it. They just never understand that you just can't talk to people like that. So when these young men came to Nabal and they presented this request for provisions, and it was a common practice for people like David that were out there in the wilderness to protect flocks in exchange for a favor. And it was just kind of how things were done, because there were poachers, different tribes that would walk through the land, and they would steal some of the sheep and some of the cattle, and they would go missing. Nabal rejected the request of David and insulted him and his servants. You know, you might want to think about who you're doing this to, Nabal. Because the man is a man of war. It was said of him that Saul, the king, had killed his thousands, but David had killed his 10,000s. He has 600 men ready to go to war, and you are insulting him. And David is going through a dark place in his life, and David might not have the best attitude at this time, and you just might not want to cross him. You might want to just say, well, this is just the price of doing business. But he didn't, because his name is Nabal. Abigail, his wife, the Bible says, was very intelligent and very beautiful. Now, when I was getting this message from the Lord, I had forgotten that it was Mother's Day. And Abigail wasn't a mother at this point in her life, but she would be a mother later on. Abigail must have been really something. The Bible says she was very intelligent, very beautiful. And in those days, marriages were arranged. So she may not have had much of a choice in the matter. Because you've got to wonder how these two got together. But you ever look at a couple and you wonder, I mean, you don't want to ask, you don't want to pry into business that's not yours, but you just wonder,